It's evaluated every year. So one of the things to understand about our department, we don't necessarily get a traditional budget like other departments do. We get, we generate all of our own revenue on a cost recovery basis. So we get expenditure authority. They said, we're given, based on what we think people are going to use of our services, we're giving an authority to recover this much in costs. And then at the end of the year, if we used it, great, or if we didn't use it, then we give it back.
To the agencies.
To the agencies in the way of either rebates or to the Department of Finance, who says, okay, well, we're going to true up what you actually spent versus what was budgeted for you in the way of authority. So essentially what that means is we only get to spend what we take in the way of costs, and those costs are driven by the services our customers use.
Okay.
I don't know if that's clear or not. But
it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Additional questions? Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you had mentioned that that there was between 50 and 60. I guess 60 now is the number of users of the cloud. How many agencies or departments are going to be offered or have the ability to acquire this? So is it, you've got 60 now, how many additional would be available after all of it was said and done?
So I've heard various numbers of the estimates of what number of state agencies there are in California. Everything from 120 to 160 different state agencies. Many of them, in honesty, are very small boards and commissions and one-offs. So let's say the universe is 120, and a lot of those are really small ones that really they use email or they use office products. In terms of who, the services are available to all of them. Will they all adopt it? That I don't know, but it's available to all of them. What we are seeing is, the ones that actually use technology quite a bit are moving into our cloud services portfolio. Now, having said that, and I think I mentioned this earlier, a lot of agencies have pretty significant investments in legacy technologies, technologies that they own and manage on their own. I don't think you're going to see them abandon those until they get to a specific inflection point, either at the end of a contract or when it's time to retire that system, in which case, and we're seeing this now, they're going to try to leverage our cloud technologies, whether it's our infrastructure or some of the individual software packages or solutions that are offered through our vendor-hosted solutions. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, okay. The amount of agencies that have the potential to come into the cloud. One of the things also, you had mentioned a $40 million over the last 3 years as an expense. Does that include your support of that going forward also? And if you could have broken it down to, for the last 3 years, in year one it cost us this, and as we come on with more departments, it cost us this, and to provide that economy of scale.
Sure. As
you're going forward, so that we have a better understanding that as you acquire more customers, that your cost benefit analysis is actually gaining value.
Sure. We can. I don't have it here with me, but we can definitely break it down for you by year, and even by which subscription or which services are getting paid which amounts or the costs generated. I guess, and I apologize for this, that is the amount that we've paid out to the vendors. That's our cost. In addition, we've had 1.2 million in staff costs, and that's our cost, the state's
yearly
cost. That is an annualized amount. Yes.
Okay. So when you do,
so it's about 40.
What I'm looking for is, when I ask total relative costs, I'm looking for including the burden or support.
Right. I apologize. I misread it. But the last 3 years, and we've staffed up in increments too. So it'd be about $43 million if you include staff costs as we've staffed up. But we can certainly break it down and get it to you on a yearly basis.
And I guess one of the other questions, and as we said, one more question, Mr. Chair, is as we started this process, value being the optimum word of the day in this process, if there is an outside vendor that is a better value for an agency, that there would be a willingness for your agency to be able to collaborate and make sure that they are supported in that fashion also. And I don't want to see, and I'm seeing a preferential right now for CalCloud. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that if there is an opportunity to bundle in the private sector, that they have every opportunity to be a part of that process.
So when you say that they are are you talking about the vendors or the agencies?
The agencies themselves that have an opportunity, if they do prefer to go to a different method or a different vendor, to be able to procure that because of it works better for them in their estimation, right? But that you have the ability to support them as a state agency, and
absolutely.
Make sure that they're successful in that quest. Because there might be other opportunities for smaller companies to bundle together to provide, 3 or 4 different assets that work great for them.
Sure. So
I don't want to just say that one entity is the monopoly on this, and that this is what you're trying to do is just make sure that only one person or one entity can do this, where private sector has an opportunity to be able to be relative and have an opportunity to get in there and show their stuff.
Sure. So let me answer that in this way. One is, of course, we would, and so this is something that I've said over and over, both in our meetings with vendors as well as with the departments. Is if our cloud service offerings don't work for you, come and talk to us. Of course, we'll work with you. If it's not feasible, it doesn't work for you, of course, we'll work with you. What I will tell you is nobody's done that. None of the departments have actually come and said, no, we want something different. But yes, we would definitely do that. The second point I want to make clear is even the service offerings we have here are private sector service offerings. It's not like it's all just my department and my staff doing all this stuff. We are partnering with the private sector. I think in the background materials we provided you, there's a whole list of all the different technology providers that are part of this. And so, especially in our vendor-hosted solutions, those are offered by private vendors. What we're doing is we're saying we're leveraging our buying power. We're putting in place some common terms and conditions that particularly around pricing and around cybersecurity. And so what we're trying to do is leverage the volume and the purchasing power of the state on behalf of departments. Having said that, there may be services, even vendor-hosted services, that don't really rise to the level of an enterprise offering, and departments are free to go and acquire those. We still want them to talk to us, and we want to know about it, and we're still going to say, okay, great, but make sure that you put in these safeguards around the contracting process. But to your point, yes, we'll work with departments in terms of meeting their needs.
Well, and I appreciate that. And, everything that I've heard today in this hearing has been on what has been accomplished up to date. What I'd really like to hear is what are your constraints or what has been roadblocks for you also during this hearing? Because, I love to hear the rah-rah component of it, but I also want to say where we can be of value to help you get over obstacles also. I think that's one of the purposes of this hearing.
So let me just, in a way, apologize, but, we get beat up a lot over here, so I'm going to take all the raws I can get. So I apologize sort of for that. Now, on the other hand, in terms of what are the constraints and the obstacles that we've seen, I mentioned them earlier. It's a change. It's a change in business model. It's a change in, if you're a department and you're used to having all your own stuff and buying it yourself and, turning it off, turning it on, and keeping it in your place, it's a change. So that's a challenge, right? It's going to be a little bit of a cultural mind shift and, an understanding from folks that, hey, just because you're not doing this part anymore doesn't mean that we're going to take away your resources or that you're no longer going to have a job. So part of it is getting folks to understand, one, it's the way the industry is going. So whether you want to change or whether you want to use our services or not, you're going to have to change your model. So that's part of it. So one of the things that would be helpful, if you're, as a committee, is as departments come before you with, requests for funding for projects, ask them, well, are you complying with the cloud policy? Are you leveraging resources that are available already through the state rather than go out and try and build or design your own or just maintain an environment that only you are using? Because, to your question earlier of are agencies getting the best value for their dollar, the way, unfortunately, you have to buy technology in a lot of cases, you have to buy for your peak periods, even if you don't use it all the time. So that's not necessarily leveraging best value. So that's one thing that would be helpful. The other thing that would be quite helpful, just to be honest, and I know that there's vendors in the room, so they'll probably throw stuff at me. When they come to see you, say, hey, are you adapting your business model to a cloud model, and especially a cloud model that can work in government? Because there are certain requirements that maybe we have that private sector companies don't have. Transparency is one of them. The need to investigate and report and notify people when a breach happens is another one. So we have to be able to go in and investigate and see what happened. In some cases, I don't know that the private sector needs to do that. So maybe they don't have to have those sorts of requirements with their cloud providers. So that would be helpful as well.
If I could make one comment to that point, I just can't resist. But in my experience, the requirements on the private sector to notify consumers and do an investigation are far higher than they ordinarily are on government. So I just didn't want to let that stand.
Sure. In some cases, I'm sure they are. I'm not sure it's in all cases or with all vendors.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Additional, Ms. Irwin.
I just have a couple of questions. How many staff does the Department of Technology have?
Around 900, just a little over 900.
And how many of them are currently working on iCloud or
The CalCloud?
CalCloud.
Yeah, there's 10 total employees that are working on CalCloud, but that being said, directly involved. But there could be 20 to 30 that are indirectly involved in some of the migrations from other lines of business. And that number, they come in and out of those services because we have several lines of businesses at the data center. So as we identify good candidates for CalCloud and moving them from our managed service line of business into CalCloud, those resources will be doing work within the cloud environment. So we anticipate that number will continue to grow as more adoption picks up.
And how many are working in the, there's 2 data centers, right?
Well, we have 645 people at our data center. There's one data center in Sacramento at Gold Camp, and we have a backup recovery site in Vacaville.
Okay, so it's 645?
Yeah.
All right, and then I just had a comment, 2 other things. You had made the comment about kind of report cards for the vendors, how well they're doing, if they're on time, and I think it's critical that we do that they're evaluated. My concern is, though, how many companies are even big enough to bid on a big California software project, and is it going to end up mattering at all what their grades are if you're rotating between, let's say, 5 vendors that are willing to bid on a California project? Are they even going to be concerned that they got a D- on their last project?
Sure. I think they are going to be very concerned about it because I've heard directly from the vendor community. In terms of how many companies are big enough to take on a California project, we have dozens of them that bid and are currently engaged in California. So I would say the number is probably in the dozens. The other thing that we are doing, however, though, is we're taking a look at how we go out and procure and build our technology systems, and we're moving away from the big, massive, monolithic project developments or system developments. A good example of it is our Child Welfare Services case management system that we're in the process of replacing. When it was bid last, it was a monolithic, gigantic system that took years to develop and roll out. What we're doing is we're breaking it up into smaller modules. So we're building out modules at a time that, one, are more affordable, that get functionality into play earlier, and because they're smaller and more manageable, there's lower risk and more companies can participate. So I think in combination, you're going to see more companies playing in the California marketplace. In terms of the value or the importance and significance of the rating system, I think it's going to be quite a bit. It's going to be very important to the companies for a couple of reasons. One is the good performers are going to want to be able to showcase that. The poor performers are going to have to step up their performance. And even though we're building this and developing it for our own use as a state, again, we've had other states and other jurisdictions saying, "Hey, we'd really like to see how are you doing it, and is it going to be public so that we can look at it as well." So I think you're going to see companies have a lot of attention and focus on that. The other thing that I think that it's going to do, because it is going to be public and it is going to be something that's going to be used, agencies are going to have to be able to back up their ratings. So they're going to have to make sure they do their part, their half of a project in order to be able to substantiate that, hey, the poor performance wasn't on the state, it was on our contractor.
Okay, and I think breaking up the projects is, I mean, we have to get better performance than we've had in the past, and breaking up the projects into more manageable pieces that more companies are willing to bid on is
that's
moving in the right
part
direction.
of what, part of the technology, the changes in technology models that I've been talking about. It's not just about cloud, it's even the way systems are being developed and engineered and architected nowadays.
Okay, and then the last question I had is on security. So we had a hearing a couple of weeks ago about how our agencies aren't really keeping up in that area, but specifically for CalCloud, threats are constantly evolving, and if you have some of these outside vendors, they can tend to be, it seems to me, potentially more on top of it. So how has there been please let me know if I'm wrong, but has there been a comparison with the security that CalCloud can provide and vendors that are really dealing with those issues every single day? Because I do think we should definitely consider cost. It's taxpayer money. We should make sure that our departments are finding a cost-effective solution. But I think the other thing we need to look at is security of the data.
I think really in looking at industry best practices, and we took that into consideration, and what are the highest levels of security, and obviously FedRAMP, the federal government, in terms of how they put their safeguards in place, is the highest. We worked quickly with IBM, our partner, to put that type of security safeguard in place so we could have the highest levels of security to conform to. So as we move data into this environment, it's in a structured environment. There's two-factor authentication, and we have the necessary safeguards for data integrity. And I think that's really important as we made the necessary changes and enhancements to CalCloud infrastructure as a service to be able to do that. And I think with the growing adoption rate we're seeing, as our members are growing in confidence that we have the ability to provide a safeguard solution that's in place. And again, we looked at industry best standards that are consistent and complementary across other cloud solutions, whether they be private or public.
So you think that CalCloud can compete with these vendors that are dealing with these
From a security perspective.
And what I would say, Ms. Irwin, is I don't know that this came out in the security hearing, but we deal with thousands and thousands of intrusion attempts every day as well. Government is a big target. We turn back almost all of them. There's very few that get through. So we're dealing with it as well on a daily basis. And in a lot of cases, folks know that government collects a lot of very sensitive data, right? So we're a target as well. So we deal with it regularly. And so, as we built out the cloud offering, security was top of mind for that. And, our customers hold us to that, right? Law enforcement isn't get on if we're not CJIS compliant. The tax agencies aren't going to get on if we're not able to meet the IRS requirements. And so, I can't find my list right now, but I read through the list of certifications and standards that we built our system to meet, but it's because of that.
Right. Okay. And I think, too, we have automated security configurations that are within the tool, where today some departments have to do that manually. Patch management, penetration, and log management, that's all done in an automated way within our cloud environment that speaks to those compliance configurations.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Lowe had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Cruz and Mr. Ramos. Appreciate the opportunity, and I know that's not easy. And you've already articulated that you've been getting some hits and been under fire on a number of different issues. And first of all, I just again want to acknowledge your service. I also want to just it appears that there's a disconnect between members of the legislature and the work that you're doing. And I think we've had conversations about the experiences, particularly of technology, California needing to lead in this way. And in fact, we have a Technology and Innovation Caucus with 29 legislators, and a number of them have come to me and talking about the oversight capacity on some of our state agencies, particularly in this realm that we're talking about via the committee process, and also DMV, case in point, and talking about what do we want to provide as it relates to the environment, the framework of driverless automated vehicles. We don't have confidence in the DMV being able to do that because we see articles time and time again that Texas rolls out the red carpet in this fashion. And so I think there's a strong disconnect that I watched with great intent the committee hearing with Mr. Chow and Ms. Irwin. And again, when we talk about the conversations today, I think it's quite respectful, but I will articulate to you that I think there's a great amount of frustration understanding the district that I represent is Silicon Valley. So I eat, breathe, and live this stuff here and back at home. And when we think about the private environment, the private sector environment, it appears that there are a number of different technologies that are already being implemented that could be used as best practices. And whether or not be going to Open World or Dreamforce that I've been to personally, and a number of members and colleagues have been to, there's a lot of opportunities to implement some of these areas and some of these pilots. And I hope you'll interpret the comments as such that I hope you'll continue to see the intent and the level of willingness, particularly for members of the legislature, to work with you. It's not a gotcha moment, putting you on the hot seat, but rather it's we want to partner with you in ensuring and highlighting that there are a lot of these best practices that we already know are in existence that are more efficient and more effective and for the consumer and also in terms of cost. And we want to bring the state to that level. We are California, and we need to represent accordingly. And I know that in our conversations, we have had articulated this point collectively. And so I hope, though, that you'll continue to observe the conversation here and go back and saying, how do we get a pulse and understand what our members of our legislature are looking at? Because I think we are to the floor. We are accountable to our constituencies. And so I ask for your partnership in that way. I think a lot of the questions have been addressed. I know that we have another panel coming forth, but I hope, again, you'll continue to take to heart the conversations that have been occurring because, again, there is a fair amount of frustration, and I think that's well acknowledged. So, but again, we are all working for the same state, and I'm hopeful that we can continue to partner in that way.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for those comments. And I do take that as as an offer of assistance and help and to open a channel of communication. The members, I haven't met you before, but the other members that are here, I think will tell you that I've had a chance to meet with that were very open and transparent and very willing to engage in conversation. I will say this. We watch Silicon Valley pretty closely as well. We go over there quite a bit and, go over and steal as many good practices as we can. Every time I go and tour a company or meet with folks over there, I tell them very, very upfront, I'm here to steal as many of your ideas as I can. And most of them are very willing to actually come in and share. Government does lag behind the commercial sector in terms of adopting technology in certain cases because we have to. We're not going to be bleeding edge because we want to adopt mature technologies that we can rely on. The other thing I would say, though, Mr. Lowe, is one of the challenges and frustrations for me, I wish Mr. Fraser was still here, but most of the information that I think I've seen comes from reading headlines and reading newspapers and articles, in that regard. And unfortunately, the good news never gets reported. The good things that we are doing really don't get reported. What you hear in headlines are things that make news, which is all the scandal or all the bad news. So I would appreciate the opportunity to engage directly and say, okay, so what is California doing? We heard it today in the committee. Oh, California can never get projects right. We fail like crazy. We've done comparisons. We actually fail less than the private sector does. They have a higher failure rate than we do, but that never comes out. We have. And I didn't bring it with me, but I have a list of over 200 different implementations of technology systems that have been successful just in the last 3 years. Here in the state of California, we never hear about that. You guys never hear about it, and the newspaper certainly isn't going to run it. So, I think more direct engagement, and I was very pleased to see that the legislature brought together this innovation caucus because I think just as our citizens. The legislature and the policymakers in government are starting to recognize that, hey, people in their day-to-day lives use technology to make their life a lot easier. Government should be the same way. We recently published our update to our strategic plan, and that's one of the central tenets of it. One of the central objectives is make government more accessible and more consumer-friendly. So we're pushing agencies to do that, and we're actually doing it. It's just that we don't get to showcase it that much, and so I would really appreciate the opportunity to come and maintain a dialogue, share with you not only the good news or all the rah-rah stuff as you heard earlier, but even some of our challenges and let you know ahead of time. Hey, we're going to have issues over here, and you need to know about it. So I appreciate the extension, and I'm going to take you up on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to be helpful in moving and doing what's best for California, especially when it's related to IT or any other department or issue. With that, I know Mr. Chow has a couple of questions, and then we'll move on to panel 2, because I know we're running a little behind.
Sure. In the interest of time, I'm just going to limit my questions to maybe just a couple follow-up questions. I understand that California is the only state that's trying to get the federal certification, but are there other states that are actually implementing the cloud environment?
There are other states leveraging cloud technologies. None of them are doing what we're doing, which is a government-only, cloud.
Now, second question, what are some of the major differences between, let's say, CalCloud and cloud service providers currently utilized by other state agencies? For example, DOJ is currently using a cloud provider that's provided by Amazon, I believe. So,
sure. So ours is a California-only cloud. It's managed on-premise. It's hosted here in the state data center. The data that comes into our cloud environment never leaves state premises. The only folks that are able to touch it are state employees or state folks, as well as the customer agencies and our contractors that work for us, and they all go through a clearance. We know exactly who's there, who has access to it. We know who's sharing the environment, and if anything ever does go wrong, we have access to all of the equipment, all of the logs, all of the technology there, and the staff to be able to go in and do an investigation.
And I think additionally, if there's a breach, that data is auditable within our data center.
got it. Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for
All
your
right. Thank you.
testimony. And I believe you guys will still stick around just in
Yes.
case there's questions for panel 2. So let me go ahead and just bring up panel 2. If you guys can please move forward. We have Russ Nichols, the Director of Enterprise Information Services with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Rita Gass, Chief Information Officer with California Conservation Corps. Stuart McKee, the National Technology Officer with the U.S. Public Sector for Microsoft. Andrea DeVoe, Executive Director for California TechNet. So thank you guys for joining us. I think you guys heard a lot from the Department of Technology anyways. So as we move forward, I don't know if everyone has a brief opening statement. Maybe we'll go through brief opening statements and ask questions of the entire panel, just in the interest of time, if that's okay.
Yep.
So who would like to begin?
I'm Russ Nichols. I'm the Director of Information Technology for the Department of Corrections. And rather than a 15-minute opening speech, I'll just address a couple of things
Please.
I've heard come up and try to be very succinct about it. We host over 100 systems that support the operation of Department of Corrections. Almost all of those are hosted at Department of Technology. A few of those right now are hosted in CalCloud, but we are actively looking and evaluating each of our systems to figure out if it makes sense. Some of the concerns I heard in the previous panel deal with cost and security and a number of things along those lines. What we do system by system is look at the functionality that's required for that system, the security that's required for that system, and find the best target. CalCloud is not always the right answer. It is a great tool, and we look forward to using it. We anticipate seeing some cost reductions, some improvements in disaster recovery, but it is not a one-size-fits-all that's appropriate for every system. In fact, we use some outside providers, some third parties, even beyond the services offered through CalCloud or VHSS, because it's not the right fit. So system by system, we do try to take that into account. With the security aspect of CalCloud, we're a very active participant in the conversations with CalCloud. As a consumer, it's frankly our right to challenge them and ask them. As a partner for that organization, I also feel it's my responsibility to help them achieve improvements in security, to help them identify the gaps, to help them bridge those gaps and figure out how to do it. Our environment might be a little different than a Department of Finance or a Cal HR, but as we collectively come together, we have a lot of similarities, a lot of things around personnel data, around personal identifiable information that have to be protected, but we also have law enforcement data that some people wouldn't have. So we have some different challenges, but as a group, I think if we actively take that stuff on, we can improve that environment and can achieve the security that everyone on the committee is asking for and asking about, and be very proactive in there. So with that, I'm happy to address questions as we move forward, but I'll cut my comments very short.
No, thank you. And thank you for making it succinct with exactly what was just said on the previous panel. So please.